It is 16 minutes after 7 o'clock, and joining us on the phone this morning from Santa Fe, New Mexico, we have Representatives Greg Nibert and Candy Spence-Ezell joining us this morning. Good morning, guys. How you doing today?
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mike.
So we're down to I guess pretty much the last week here in a 30-day session. Now, not that anything slows down as much in a 30-day as a 60-day, but does the last week kind of really gear up for you guys whereas you went 100 miles an hour till now you're going 200 miles an hour for this last week while they try to scramble and get the last things they want to get done?
Mike, the disorganization that goes on up here is unbelievable. The speaker cannot plan anything in advance because he doesn't really know what's happening here. Tomorrow, or this evening, I guess it is, because he stated this yesterday, we will have a short floor session after committees this morning, and then we will go back into committees because he's got other plans. We won't go back on the floor until 8 o'clock tonight.
Wow.
And that's as far as ahead of time that we know of right now.
Man.
And he takes us into the evening because he thinks that he's punishing us if we talk too long.
I gotcha. So, obviously, so when they do this kind of stuff, is it to try to, is the tactic there to try to make sure the bills that they want to get passed get to the House floors and the main places where they need to, while the ones they don't kind of die on the vine a little bit? Is that part of those kind of tactics, or is that something different altogether?
Well, it's kind of like a fire hose.
Okay.
You have all these bills that are in the tank, so to speak, that are trying to get through a pretty narrow opening, and the bills are backed up in committee. They're backed up on the speaker's desk on the House floor,
mm-hmm.
and with only a week left, he has to decide which pieces of legislation he wants to make sure go through the process. And it's
also hinged upon what the governor wants passed through our House, too.
Sure.
That's very good.
Well,
she's sending messages down to him all the time.
Sure. Yeah, I was about to say it's probably pretty obvious that where the speaker's marching orders are coming from here. So it's just waiting on deciding what the governor wants, basically, and then he tries to make that happen as much as he can as speaker.
Mike, she does send messages down to those representatives. I know that you're aware of this. There was a certain representative that did submit her resignation.
Mm-hmm.
It came after pretty brutal chastising by certain people that lasted over 4 hours. That she was being screamed and yelled at, and this representative stated for her mental well-being she would not put up with that anymore, and she resigned. So that is what happens up here.
Interesting, because I heard on the news that the representative resigned based on mental well-being, but I didn't hear the details behind that story. So that's kind of what was going on there. Interesting.
Yes, sir, it was what was going on there.
We had a really interesting fight break out on the floor when one of the representatives from western New Mexico made an objection to the process that was going on with the particular bill, and you would have thought that the place melted down because all of a sudden the colleagues on the other side of the aisle started scrambling. They were put between a rock and a hard place, and pretty soon they called for a caucus meeting, and they all left the House floor and came back, and that representative who made the bold statement about an issue all of a sudden withdrew his motion, and things got back to normal. But that's the power of the governor and the power of the speaker, whipping their members in line, and the representative had a very good point. The speaker had gone out of his way to maneuver a bill. In fact, the Speaker appointed an additional person to the one committee that was hearing this bill so that his bill would pass that committee because it was likely going to fail. And he appointed a new member to that committee to get an extra vote to move that out of committee. And that's what the representative from Western New Mexico was bringing up. And it was like an atomic bomb went off on the floor of the House, and it was rather amusing.
And it's we laugh in the ridiculousness, but to be honest, this is why we've had the problems we have, because the deck's been stacked for so long, and if in any time there's any kind of dissension, they just say, "Oh, well, we'll get rid of the dissension."
That is what happened. These members on the other side have been told, if you don't vote the way we tell you to, we will make sure you don't come back.
Wow, democracy in action there, huh?
Exactly.
So, yeah, we don't want this happening, obviously, in our legislature. We see this going on, and the public here should be very scared when they see that kind of thing happen. But does that bode well for conservatives? Like, is this going to alienate enough on the other side where they say, you know what, we're tired of this, we're breaking from that, and we're gonna see does this in some weird way actually help us in maybe seeing a shift down the road, or am I just dreaming?
I don't know about that issue, but I can tell you that some of this criminal justice reform legislation that was proposed, the governor spoke pretty forcefully about the need to increase sentences, the need to keep violent offenders off the street. And it looks like a lot of that legislation that's moving through the House anyway is really watered down. We had House Bill 5 that was trying to keep the violent offenders in jail, not release them back onto the streets. And yesterday we heard that bill in Judiciary, and I'll tell you, it's a fragment of what it was, and all it says is that it became an ankle monitoring bill. It doesn't do anything to stop the revolving door, the catch and release program. It is simply an electronic monitoring device bill at this point. And so I hope the folks in Albuquerque are really paying attention because, as I've told you before, criminal justice reform in southeast New Mexico means something totally different than criminal justice reform in Albuquerque, and they are watering down this legislation to the point that it means nothing. And I hope the folks in Albuquerque are looking at what's happening.
Well, and so really it's basically talking out of two ends of the mouth here because, we've seen the governor publicly, particularly in Albuquerque, claiming to crack down on crime and wanting all this. And so really what it sounds like, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all, we're doing something that says we're doing something, but there's no teeth or no actual real substance that's coming from these, in essence, bills that are kind of almost to me sound just like window dressing, if that makes sense.
That is exactly what's going on here, Mike. I'm appalled at what they are doing to these bills that are supposed to be strengthening regulations, rules, whatever the case may be, to protect our public. But yet, here we go again. We're going to give them a slap on the wrist and set them free. See what happens. Tell them you're a bad person. Don't do that again.
Oh, wait, we can't tell them they're a bad person.
Sorry, you're right.
We have to
You're
tell them, Johnny, please don't do that again. We're sorry.
Yeah.
Man. It's I don't know, because I don't understand the logic here. What's their end game on this? Is it something that can even remotely make sense to us? I just don't understand why they don't want to do real work on trying to fix this.
Mike, your guess is as good as mine, because they're the ones whose constituents have to put up with that stuff. It's the people that they're fighting for, or who they say they're fighting for. It's the poorest of the poor that are more extremely impacted by this criminal behavior than anybody else.
Yeah.
And yet they portray themselves as being champions of the poor, and on the other hand, they won't do anything to get that crime under control. And their response is, we just need more police on the street. Well, a year ago, they were saying, defund the police. You can't have more police on the street if you're discouraging people from wanting to enter that profession. It does not make sense, but that's what they're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're so screwed up here.
And because the problem is so bad up there, New Mexico is training these state policemen. And because of the poor pay situation, or because of the situation in Albuquerque where it is catch and release, these officers are actually leaving the state of New Mexico after we've invested all this money in the training for them. So you tell me what's wrong with that problem. Can anybody figure that one out?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty it really doesn't take a Rhodes Scholar to put that math together and figure out what's going on with that equation there. Because, I mean, and why would someone? I mean, if I'm a law enforcer, especially an experienced law enforcement officer, and they're, they can go to the next state over and say, at least my work is appreciated, and I'm not, I don't at least appear to be busting the same people every day because they let them out as soon as I put them back in jail. It's just insanely, it's so ridiculous. It's almost funny if that's, it is not, because it's a serious, but it almost seems like we're watching a Saturday Night Live sketch or something sometimes. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well, they will go home and they'll say, we support the police because we got them a 19% raise in the fiscal 2022-23 budget. And, they'll point to that as their support of law enforcement, yet on the other hand, they do everything they can to make it more difficult for them to do their work. They say things that frankly, do not do anything to help the morale of our police officers. They don't provide the support, and it's disingenuous.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, and let's, because in all fairness, in all reality, if we're talking like if they've, what they're saying, support law enforcement, do this, and we talk about, the world we live in and defunding the police and the things that are going on here. Well, every one of these folks that are on that side have all said, well, they need to, basically retrain how law enforcement does their job. And agree or disagree, I'm like, well, okay, if that's what you think, then why aren't you working to find all the kind of resources to get the kind of training you think they need into law enforcement? Where's that effort if you're so concerned about it? Because I've yet to hear anybody talk about that. It's like, well, if they're not training them, maybe we need to assess on how they train them. Where's that funding? Where's that stuff coming from? I'm not hearing anybody talk about that.
It's just really difficult to understand that. I don't understand the mindset that they go through to get to some of the conclusions that they make.
Right.
And it's totally foreign to the legislators who serve from Southeast New Mexico. None of us understand their logic in arriving at some of those conclusions, particularly based on what we see on the news every night in their community.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Absolutely. At some point, you'd think people would start asking questions. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's happening and we just don't see that part of it or what. I don't know. But I can't imagine there's not people that live up north that are finally at a point where they're saying, we're being screwed by these people. We need to do something about it. you
right. know? Well, Mike, on the same line of asking questions, we had an issue that we were made aware of on Sunday morning, I guess it was.
Okay.
In regards to the U.S. Forest Service over there on the National Forest, the Gila National Forest.
Okay.
Seems like we were notified that the Forest Service was going to go in there and do an aerial keep this in mind, aerial shooting of those stray cattle over there in the Gila National Forest. That means that they were going to fly over in helicopters and literally shoot these cattle. We got busy. We wrote a letter to the Forest Service. We sent it out to every agency that we could think of with bipartisan support on this, not to allow that to happen. We were informed this was to commence Tuesday. We got word back. We sent it to all of our congressional delegations. They got involved with it, with the exception of one senator. And we heard that there was going to be more meetings. I got a message late last night that the Forest Service and APHIS decided they would continue on with this slaughtering of stray cattle over in the Gila by way of helicopter. Now, can you really read a brand out of a helicopter?
Right. Well, I mean,
so they're going in there today. They are going to kill with rifles from the air approximately 100 head of cattle. We have laws in New Mexico that what happens when an stray is found, it is the responsibility of the New Mexico Livestock Board to impound these cattle to determine who the owner is.
Yeah.
And if there is no owner that comes forward, they are then sold by the New Mexico Livestock Board, okay?
I don't.
As it stands today, with them going in there today and tomorrow to kill these cattle, they're going to leave those carcasses on the ground right there.
Yep.
Do we have hungry people in the state of New Mexico that could use, after these cattle were gathered by cowboys, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
that could have used that? Could they have gone to these agencies are like our Fishes and Loaves organization down in the Dexter area to be put to good use?
Absolutely.
What they are doing there makes me absolutely sick. I am furious about it. And here we go, because the federal government says, well, we have the right to do it with no notification to anybody in the state of New Mexico.
Wow. That is insane. I mean, I feel like there's so many ways they could rectify this without going to the air with helicopters and shooting cattle. That, I mean, are we just going to, hey, look, there's just random piles of money on federal land that no one's going to claim it, so we're just going to burn it? I mean, that's what it almost sounds, in essence, the same thing as what they're doing there, because that, I mean, yes, their cattle's are animal, but that's like you said, that's, how many people can you feed with that?
Right.
Just look at the brands. If there's brands on it, shouldn't that tell you who they belong to? That's the whole point of branding. Is it just too dense to get someone in there to look at it? Is that what they're saying? Whenever
the Forest Service took back this allotment, they destroyed all of the improvements that were made to this allotment. So
Okay.
there's pins there. So that, therefore, they say, well, the easiest way to do this is just to go in there and aerially kill them. Okay, those carcasses are going to be lying there in the forest. Is that going to attract, I don't know, any of the Mexican gray wolves that have been released from captivity because they were raised in captivity?
Mm-hmm.
Are they now going to be conditioned that, hey, beef is good?
Right. Yeah.
They are saying this area is for the elk habitat. Don't you think that those wolves will also be attracted to, I don't know, elk?
Right. Yeah.
They're saying, I mean, I am just infuriated by what they are doing.
So
I will drop it.
At this point, I mean, is there anything the public, I mean, is it, I mean, because, I mean, you can't.
Yes, they can write. I'll tell you some people we wrote to.
Okay.
We sent this letter to the governor of the state of New Mexico, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House, president of the Senate, the attorney general,
Okay.
the senatorial and congressional delegation, where Martin Heinrich was no help whatsoever. We sent it to the U.S. Forest Service, the State Livestock Board, New Mexico Cattle Growers, Secretary of Agriculture, Farm and Livestock Bureau, New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau, the Forest Supervisor in the Gila National Forest, all of the sheriff's departments, the Association of Counties, and the list goes on and on and on. We even sent it to the Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus. We sent it to every agency that we could think of. And the only ones that did not support this effort was the United States Forest Service.
Interesting. So, folks, keep blowing up phones, blowing up people's computers. Anybody that's got really any kind of authority in the state of New Mexico, put it on their radar and make them, at least hear what's going on and tell them, hey, you should do something about this before some real dumbness happens here. Man, but do it quick.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And I'm going to bring it up this morning at our 8 o'clock Ag Committee, and I do want this made public. Mike, I think that what Greg and I would like to discuss now is what we submitted last week.
Okay.
And that,
in regard to our capital outlay.
Okay.
Mike, it's probably a positive note for our community. It looks like we have secured about $7.5 million to return to Chaves County and the governmental entities within Chaves County. And some of the really exciting ones that the city of Roswell would be happy to hear that and all this is subject to the governor's veto pen, but we hope she will certainly sign off on these things. But the city of Roswell has noticed that the only city in the state that is capable of having firefighting training for airport fires is Albuquerque, in concert with Kirtland Air Force Base.
Okay.
Every other airport in the state has to send its firefighters that serve airports out of state for training. And so the city of Roswell would like to open a aircraft firefighting training center in Roswell, and we fully funded that request so that measure can move forward, and maybe we can get that training facility out at the Roswell Industrial Air Center.
Yeah, that would be great. So in essence, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that would bring in the firefighters from Las Cruces, from Clovis, from Hobbs, and all the other airports except for Albuquerque.
Very good.
Throughout the state. So it's not only training our firefighters, but it's also some economic development, bringing in those firefighters from elsewhere to learn how to put out fires involving aircraft at an air facility.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I imagine we're an ideal training environment for that, with that air industrial center where you don't have the traffic and volume that you have, say, at the Albuquerque airport there, the Sunport. But here, they've got the space, the open area, and they can do all kinds of training out there. I imagine, that could potentially be the main training area at some point where like you said, it's going to be doing more work than the Albuquerque Center there, and which would all be good for Southeast New Mexico. Pretty good stuff. I like that.
And we might be able to find an airplane or two.
Yeah. I think we got one laying around.
I think we just might be able to come up with one or two.
We'll check under the couch here, but I think we got one.
Yeah. We also provided some funds. We've been working on and I say we, the county commission, who does a really great job taking care of us in Chaves County. They've had a request in for several years to replace historic courthouse windows, and that's been done in phases, and I believe this is the last phase.
Okay.
We have provided some more money to finish out that historic window replacement process, and that has been a real ordeal, because when the building was made in 1910 or so, each window was custom made, and so the county was unable to go out and say, we need 100 windows of this size and 100 windows of that size. It had to basically have people come in and take precise measurements, and they're having to custom make those windows which of course drives up the cost. So I think
Sure.
this is the last installment of that project. If you've ever been on West Brasher out by the city landfill,
Mm-hmm.
there's a bridge.
And it's a scary bridge, Mike.
Yeah. I know the bridge of which you
Very
speak.
narrow, scary bridge.
There is a lot of traffic on that road, too, because they're able to turn off the relief route onto Brasher, and you cannot see if anybody is approaching. If you are heading from the west to the east, you cannot see that there might be an oncoming traffic until you're right at the bridge itself.
And that's a project that Representative Ezell and I had tried to fund a couple years ago, and I believe it got vetoed.
Okay.
But we have again funded that road project, and hopefully that will be taken care of.
Well,
there's a number of other things throughout the city: Dexter, Hagerman, Lake Arthur, and the Eastern New Mexico University. They had a big project to replace their cooling and their boilers. Very big project, and we've got a pretty good sum of money in for that particular project. The other things that are of interest, there's some additional road projects. A museum and art center got funded. The county also is trying to do some things with what's called Area D, which is where people do the early voting. They're trying to take that building and make it into a larger 911 center, a regional
dispatch
communication center. And so there's some money to advance that effort.
okay.
The health department is in need of some different quarters, and so we put in a little bit of money to study that issue.
Okay.
And then Candy, of course, covers the valley, and there's a number of projects that Dexter, Hagerman, Lake Arthur had and are funded here. So very pleased to be able to provide that. It's money that comes from largely the oil and gas production in the state, and
Sure.
we're glad we're able to return some of it to our community.
Well, and that's what.
Another thing that Representative Nibert and Representative Anderson and I presented to the House Appropriations the other day, after it passed out unanimously from House Transportation, was the bill to do work on US 380 going east out of Roswell to the Texas state line.
Yes, that would be amazing if that goes 4 lanes.
Well, we're not sure if it's going to go 4 lanes right here at the start. They're talking about what is it called, a Super 2?
A Super 2.
Okay.
It's called a Super 2 highway. And they will intermittently have passing lanes on the eastbound side, and then it will alternate to the northbound side. So you're never going to be tied up, the 15th person in a row that is behind a vehicle that is going 45 miles an hour.
I gotcha.
So, but it's a big project, and it is on the radar now. District 2 always does an excellent job with our roads, and they are I'm going to go back and correct that, the district that always comes in under budget, gets their jobs done on time, and whenever they do come in under budget, that money is used elsewhere. I have a problem with that.
They don't get rewarded for their good stewardship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I do have to applaud those workers out there at our District 2 office, DOT office. They are doing a great job, and hopefully whenever we do get that road improved, it'll be easier for, school buses, mail service, ambulance service, tourists,
Everybody.
people going to doctors, you name it.
Yeah, I would imagine too. It's just safer. I mean, I don't think you were getting. I don't know for folks that have been here a while. If you remember the stretch of highway between Roswell and Ruidoso, that much of that was 2-lane for a long time, and every summer there's people dying on that thing because that's kind of a curvy road compared to the stretch we're talking about here. But But once that made that 4 lanes, that changed the landscape of the safety and everything else on that area. So I'm thinking we'll see some of that and that stretch between here and Tatum, with some of this work too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Secretary of Tourism is totally behind this project because she understands the importance of tourists coming into our state, especially just from right across the state line.
Absolutely.
This is how they get to these other points of interest, whether it's Roswell, Artesia, Ruidoso, Alamogordo, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
They have to travel that road to get in here.
Yep.
And the Super 2 project that both Commissioner Bruce Ellis and Cisco Sanchez and Alan Briley and others have explained to us is that it's basically a 3-lane highway all the way, 3 lanes all the way, but it will alternate as to whether the eastbound or westbound have the passing lane.
Gotcha.
So it's 3 lanes all the way. It's not just a passing lane for, a 4-mile stretch. It'll be a 3-lane highway from the Texas state line to the city limits of Roswell, or probably to Ashland.
Yeah, because right now they have those intermittent pass lanes every, 20, 30 miles or so. I don't know the distance between them. But, yeah, so this, in essence, will be 3 lanes all the way, but it's just it'll take turns on which side of the lane gets the second lane there, basically. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right. That's what they've explained to us, and I think that's what they're shooting for. And like Representative Zell said, we had a bill in front of appropriations for $46 million. That would have started the project. It did get tabled in appropriations, but as a result of that effort, everyone, including Secretary Michael Sandoval, the Secretary of Transportation, they all recognize that need is there, and so 380 is moving up on the statewide priority list.
Okay.
And District 2 still having to deal with a couple major projects down in the Jow area, some of the oil field roads, but this is moving forward, and we're hopeful that we'll start seeing some progress on this within the next couple of years.
Good deal. We're running short on time, but I do want to ask real quick, since we're talking roads, any relief for our folks farther south in the Hobbs-Lee County area on some of those road issues they've got? Have you heard any one way or another on some of the progress there?
Well, 128, which is the road between Loving and Jow, that's a major reconstruct, and I believe that they are, if I remember our discussion with Cisco in December, I think that thing is being let for bid, and that thing's moving forward. There's another road out in that area. I think it's New Mexico 31, which is out in the Potash area, okay. Services a lot of oil and gas. That road is also being substantially redone. US 285 south of Carlsbad, I think that's been under construction for a while. So that's where the real focus has been. And frankly, Mike, that's why the US 380 maybe hasn't moved as far as it has, is because the focus has really been on that area that
sure.
has in oil field traffic and trying to take care of the very dangerous situations down there. But now the focus is moving further north, and US 380 is now on their radar.
Well, we'll take it.
You also have to keep in mind that southeastern New Mexico gets, it seems like, one road project a year, but boy, we can sure fix them up around, I don't know, Taos and Santa Fe and all those areas up north that don't like the oil and gas industry. So, yeah.
Well, they like our money.
One thing we learned talking to Cisco is District 2, which is, the headquartered in Roswell, and it covers basically from Clovis to Jow and from the state line to Alamogordo. That district has more lane miles than any other DOT district in the state of New Mexico. And so you look at how much how many roads there are in southeast New Mexico and how many lane miles they have to take care of, build and construct and maintain and repair. Our guys in Roswell, Hobbs, Clovis, at those offices have more to do than any other district, and so they should be patted on the back.
Absolutely.
They do. So I know you hit a pothole every now and then. You go, why aren't they fixing those things? But
well, our weather's not the kindest on roads anyway. Even without the traffic or anything, just the extreme conditions we get wreaks havoc on that asphalt too, not just the traffic.
Yeah, and we also have a lot of heavy equipment utilizing those roads with the oil patch and stuff. So, we understand it. It's just that our guys are stretched pretty thin with a large area of the state to cover, but they do a pretty good job of trying to keep up with it. And that 380 project will just be another thing they have to put on their plate, but I'm sure they're up to the task.
Absolutely. Well, we're about out of time for this time, unfortunately. I'd love to talk to you guys, but I know you got your day job to take care of here. But as always, we thank you too, and of course, thanks to Phelps as well, and all of your brother and sister legislators here. We do appreciate the fight you guys are having this during this session here, and I wish we could give you some energy drinks or something to help you get through this last week.
Mike, we're making sure that we drink Fairlife muscle milk.
There you go. There you go. Go with chocolate, by the way.
Put in a plug for our dairy industry.
Absolutely. Yep. Very good. Well, thank you. We appreciate the visit here, and we'll hopefully get a chance to talk next week here during the final day of the session here. So.
Thank God. People will be safe then.
Absolutely, for another year. Thank you, guys. Have a great day, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, that was our representatives, Greg Nibert and Candy Spence-Ezell. Thank you very much to them. And, you heard it. There's some from the good to the ridiculous coming out of Santa Fe. One more week of that, but we'll probably get a good recap of how everything went next Thursday when it is actually the last day of the session. They'll be wrapping up then. All right, 7:54. Let's take